Hi everyone, this is Timman against Viktor Korchnoi, which was played at the Tilburg tournament in 1991. Timman was white and he started with e4, and Korchnoi went into the French defence with e6. Then came d4, d5, knight c3, and some pretty normal opening moves for this variation. And here Timman played h4, which offers chances of a slight advantage for white. It's just reinforcing this bishop, so if the black bishop was to take, then the knight can recapture. And here Korchnoi played c5, and that's pretty good. Another possibility here is simply castling, and after queen d2, e5, which is solid in terms of position but leads to fairly boring and lifeless games. So Korchnoi chooses the most active response with c5. And then Timman played queen d2 and c takes d4. Timman castled queenside and e5, which looks as though it's just trying to materialistically hold on to the pawn here, but in actual fact what Korchnoi is doing is making Timman work a bit harder to get it back. So Timman plays rook e1, Korchnoi castles, and then knight takes e5 and rook e8, which essentially was a blunder from Korchnoi. A better way to continue was with knight takes e5, and after rook takes e5, bishop e6, bishop takes f6, queen takes f6, queen takes d4, and rook f d8. Black would have good enough compensation here for the sacrificed pawn, and it's a much better continuation than the game, because after rook e8, Timman played a brilliant move, and if you want to try and spot it, then stop the video now. Okay, what he played was knight takes f7, which is a brilliant sacrifice, and here Korchnoi is basically forced to play rook takes e1, because if for example he plays king takes f7, then bishop c4 check is very strong and king f8 is forced. If king g6 instead, then h5 check, king f5, and queen f4 is mate. So it has to be king f8 at this stage. And then rook takes e8 check, queen takes e8, rook e1, threatening the queen, and knight e5 again is forced because of the threat of queen b4 check. If instead he plays queen d8, just trying to hold on to the queen, then queen b4 check, and it's a forced mate in 8 moves. After queen e7 has to be played, and rook takes e7, a5, and you know, it's just crazy moves from black in order to stop the mate. But after this continuation, it's completely forcing, and that's a double check from the rook and the bishop. So king f8 and rook e5, check from the queen, bishop e7, and queen takes e7 is mate. So at this stage, knight e5 is forced because of that threat. But even then, bishop takes f6, g takes f6, queen to h6 check, king e7, and queen g7 check is winning easily for white. So after the sack, the knight is immune for the moment, and rook takes e1 is forced. And then came queen takes e1, and now Korchnoi took the knight, which is really the best move available to him, but Timman gets very good compensation for it after bishop to c4 check. And here king f8 is the only move to avoid being mated. And then comes the powerful queen e6 with strong threats on f7 and g8. So bishop takes g5 check is really the best move, and it's pretty much forced. If instead knight e5 to defend f7 and queen g8 check, king e7, queen takes g7, again is easily winning for white. So bishop takes g5 check and h takes g5, queen takes g5 check, and king b1. Then came knight e5, which is the strongest way to defend against the mating threats. If instead, for example, queen f6 and queen g8 check, queen g8 check, king e7, rook e1 check, knight e5, and queen d5 wins the knight because it's pinned, and it's only protected by the queen, and none of these other pieces can protect it. So the knight's falling, and after that it's pretty much a matter of technique to win the game. So knight e5 is the best hope at defending, and then comes queen g8 check anyway, king e7 and rook e1, with the same threat as before of queen d5, which would win the knight. So bishop d7 is basically forced. Korchnoi has to give back material because of the threats of the position. If he would have played something else, for example say h6, then queen d5, king f6, queen d6 check is mating in 6 moves. After king f5, rook takes e5 check, king g4, and bishop e2 check. I mean, you can't just take the queen there, but it's mate in 3 moves after bishop e2 check, king h4, rook d5, d3. I mean, it's helpless for black. Bishop h3 and queen takes h3 is mate. So here bishop d7 is forced, and white is getting his material back with interest. So queen takes a8, and then queen d2, rook takes e5 check, king f6, and a3 here from Timman, just making a luft, bit of breathing space for the king to defend against the back rank threats. And it also ensures that he's going to go into the endgame a piece up, because after king takes e5 and queen b8 check, king f5 and queen f8 check, and here Korchnoi resigned because he's unable to hold on to the bishop regardless of where he moves the king. Like for example, if he goes to g6, then it's very strong with bishop d3 check, king h5 and queen f7 check is winning the bishop. So that's it. It was a brilliant game from Korchnoi. I'll replay it with the threatened squares highlighted just so you can see it from start to finish. Another sacrifice on f7 in this game, which you've seen a lot in these miniatures, and as I'm sure you know, f7 is the weakest point in black's position at the start of the game, and the same as f2 for the white side, because it's only defended by the king in the starting position, and so it's almost always the best square to sacrifice on. And yeah, here it comes. It's a good example of how to exploit that weakness by Timman in this game. And after that he really had a crushing attack. There was no way to avoid having to give the material back, after which his position was completely lost. His king is stuck in the center and subject to a lot of tactical threats, and Timman exploited that completely, especially at the end here where Korchnoi couldn't avoid losing his bishop, and after that it's pretty simple to win the game. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed that. Please leave any comments or thoughts. Thanks very much.